Welcome to the Phil and H Travel Podcast. Is it worth it? Today, we are doing a massive deep dive into Fiordland, New Zealand. We are going to look at the absolute chaos of the 2026 season, the staggering costs, the crowds, the sandflies, and really just try to figure out if it is actually worth all the hype.
Yeah, and we have a ton of specific data to go through, breaking down the accommodation tiers, the daily budgets, and those major logistical traps that catch so many first-time visitors.
Right, because, usually when you hear a phrase like the eighth wonder of the world, you have this very specific, very peaceful image in your head.
Oh, absolutely. You picture untouched wilderness, right?
Yeah, profound silence. Maybe, I don't know, a lone bird circling in the mist while you just stand there taking it all in.
Exactly. You expect this kind of hushed, solitary awe.
Ah.
I mean, that's the baseline expectation for true wilderness.
But what you definitely do not expect is to be sitting in a bumper-to-bumper traffic jam.
No, definitely not.
Like, you don't expect to be staring at the exhaust pipe of a massive diesel coach just inching forward while hundreds of other people around you are checking their smartwatches to see if they're going to miss their boat.
Yeah, but welcome to the absolute chaos of the 2026 season. I mean, if you've been scrolling your social media feeds lately, you have definitely seen the heavily filtered realities of this place.
Oh, the Instagram hype is unreal.
It really is. It's all perfect waterfalls, mirror-like reflections, and crucially, not a single other human being in sight.
It looks like a completely private paradise.
Right, but it's a carefully curated illusion. The reality of consuming pristine wilderness today is, well, it's something entirely different. The sources we're diving into highlight that December 2025 and January 2026 completely shattered every existing visitor record in Fiordland.
Wow, every record.
Every single one. And then, right on the heels of that, the Chinese New Year in 2026 triggered this massive second wave.
Yeah.
We are talking about a 9-day surge that literally stacked coaches and camper vans bumper to bumper on the single road into the area.
That visual is just wild to me. This is the place Rudyard Kipling famously called the eighth wonder of the world. And our mission today is to strip all of that Instagram perfection away, right?
Exactly. We are taking down the glossy waterfall photography and giving you the unvarnished 2026 logistical truth.
So we're going to cover exactly what it costs to just exist in this landscape, the reality of the crowds, and we'll break down the accommodation tiers, from the bottom of the barrel dorms to staggering luxury lodges.
Because make no mistake, getting there is a profound effort. And there's this massive, almost baffling paradox at the heart of how Fiordland is managed right now.
Right. The Department of Conservation, DOC, as everyone calls them down there, they've actually gone on the record about this, haven't they?
Yeah, they publicly admit that the crowds are a severe problem. They acknowledge action is needed to protect the environment and the experience.
But here's where my mind just short circuits. They admit it's a problem, but they've done practically nothing to throttle the demand at the entry level.
Almost nothing, yeah.
Like if you're listening to this in the U.S., you might assume it's like a popular national park where you need a timed entry permit just to drive in. But no, in Fiordland, there is zero park entry fee.
No hard cap on vehicles, no booking system just across the boundary, and no tourism levy at the gate.
It's genuinely wild. It's like, okay, imagine an incredibly exclusive, ultra-hyped nightclub, the hottest club on the planet.
Okay, I'm picturing it.
And it is completely free to enter. The bouncer just waves you right through.
Sounds great so far.
Right. But there is a massive catch. There is only one single, incredibly narrow door to get inside. And once you squeeze through that door, the dress code requires you to wear $1 million watch, and a bottle of water costs a fortune.
That is the exact mechanism at play here. The access is democratized, it's free, but the actual survival is hyper-capital.
Exactly. The land itself is free, but surviving the logistics and existing comfortably requires an incredible amount of capital and relentless planning.
And to understand why that single door is such a brutal bottleneck, we really have to look at the sheer scale and geography of the place, because the environment dictates absolutely everything.
It does not care about your itinerary.
Not even a little bit. We are talking about a national park that covers 1.2 million hectares.
1.2 million hectares. That is New Zealand's largest national park by a massive margin.
Yeah, it's huge.
For our listeners trying to picture that, it's roughly the size of the entire state of Connecticut, just designated as completely wild, mountainous terrain.
It is incomprehensibly large when you're actually standing in it. And within that space, you have 14 distinct fjords. And actually, we need to pause and clarify the naming here because it confuses so many first-time visitors.
Oh, right, because Milford Sound is technically a fjord, not a sound.
Exactly.
Wait, I always thought those words were basically interchangeable, like a body of water surrounded by mountains. What's the actual difference?
It's entirely geological, and it completely changes how the landscape looks. So a sound is essentially a river valley that has been flooded by the sea. They usually have these sloping V-shaped sides,
Okay.
but a fjord, spelled F-I-O-R-D in New Zealand, is carved by glaciers. These 14 fjords were gouged out of solid rock by massive rivers of ice over 100,000 years.
So they carved out these deep, steep U-shaped valleys instead.
Right. And when the ice melted, the ocean rushed in.
So that's why you have these near vertical rock faces dropping straight down into the water. The ice acted like a giant bulldozer blade.
Precisely. So Milford Sound is just a historical misnomer that's stuck on the maps. Now, within this massive area, you have incredible extremes of access. Milford is the most famous simply because it's the most accessible.
Though accessible is a highly relative term here, which we'll get into.
Definitely. And on the other end, you have places like Doubtful Sound, which is vastly larger but much more remote.
And to really grasp this paradox of access that free nightclub with the $1 million dress code, we have to talk about the legendary Milford Track.
Oh, yes, the Milford Track.
If you are into hiking, you know this name. It is the absolute pinnacle of New Zealand trekking. It's a 53.5-kilometer journey. It takes 4 days and 3 nights, point to point.
And it's consistently rated as one of the greatest walks on planet Earth.
Right, but this is where the economics of that dress code really start to hit the wallet.
Yeah, let's unpack the brutal math for international hikers for the 2026 and 2027 season. The Great Walk season runs from late October to late April. If you want to hike it independently, meaning carrying your own food and sleeping bag, you are legally required to stay in the designated DOC huts.
You can't just pitch a tent wherever you want.
No, absolutely not. And the fee for an international visitor to sleep in one of those huts is 152 USD per night.
Okay, wait, I have to interrupt the math right here, so I have this absolutely straight.
Go ahead.
The park itself, this massive natural wonder, is totally free to enter.
Yeah.
But a wooden bunk bed in a shared dormitory room in the middle of nowhere costs $152 a night.
That is exactly right.
I just can't wrap my head around that. So for a 3-night hike, that is 450 styles USD just for a foam mattress. You are sharing a room with like 40 strangers, carrying your own trash out, and it costs more than a private hotel room in Chicago.
It does. And if you decide that organizing all the food and the boat transports is too much hassle and you want to do a commercial guided walk package, that jumps to between $3,200 and $4,500 USD per person.
For a 4-day hike,
Yeah.
you are literally just walking.
You are walking, yeah. But what's fascinating is the underlying mechanism here. You are participating in the bottleneck economy.
Okay, break that down for me.
Well, think about where these huts are located. They are deep in incredibly hostile, remote alpine terrain. The land is free, but surviving comfortably on it is premium.
So what exactly is that $152 paying for? It's clearly not high thread count sheets.
No, you're paying for the incredibly complex logistics of keeping you alive and keeping the environment pristine. To run those huts, DOC has to fly in huge gas cylinders via helicopter just for the cooking stoves.
Right, because there are no roads.
Exactly. They have to fly in the wardens to monitor avalanche risks. And most importantly, they have to manage the human waste. You have thousands of hikers passing through a fragile ecosystem. You can't just let them dig holes.
Yeah, that would destroy the place instantly.
Right. So the waste systems have to be airlifted out or highly treated on site.
Okay, so the bottleneck economy. You can walk into the woods for free, but if you want to sleep under a dry roof and not destroy the ecology, you are paying for the helicopter fuel that makes it possible.
Exactly. You aren't paying for the view, you're paying for the infrastructure that allows you to survive the view. And speaking of survival, this entire experience is completely dictated by one unpredictable element.
The sky.
The sky. The legendary Fiordland weather.
This is such a huge point. Because if you're planning a massive international vacation, you usually pray for sunshine, right? You want clear blue skies.
Usually, yes.
But Fiordland is famous for rain, and not just a drizzle. Our sources say we are talking up to 8 meters of rainfall annually in some of these valleys.
Yeah, let's contextualize 8 meters. That is over 26 feet of water falling from the sky onto your head every single year.
That is a staggering, almost tropical volume of rain, but it's happening in the mountains.
It is. And here's the craziest part, the real paradox of this weather system. In Fiordland, The rain is actually the primary attraction.
Right. It's the engine that drives the whole visual spectacle.
Yeah, exactly.
If you get a completely dry, hot, sunny summer week, those iconic waterfalls from the brochures, they
Yeah.
literally shrink to a trickle or disappear completely.
Yeah, you're just looking at massive, dry rock faces,
Mm-hmm.
which are still impressive geologically, but it's not the dynamic, violent landscape you traveled thousands of miles to see.
Right. Because the rock walls are incredibly steep granite, the water doesn't soak in, it just runs straight off.
So the more torrential the rain, the more dramatic it becomes. Thousands of spontaneous waterfalls erupt and cascade hundreds of meters straight down into the fjord. It's beautiful.
It's like visiting in a dry January is like going to a 3 Michelin-star restaurant, ordering their famous soup, and the waiter just brings you an empty porcelain bowl.
Huh, right.
I mean, sure, it's a nice bowl, but you need the rain to make the scenery work. You need the soup.
That is a very apt way to look at it. You have to embrace the rain. But navigating exactly when to go to get the right kind of rain while avoiding the worst of the crowds is a complex matrix.
So let's break down the calendar year. When is everyone else going?
Well, first you have the peak season. This runs from November through April. This is when the Great Walks are fully staffed and day cruises are operating at absolute maximum frequency.
And it's also when the sandflies are out for blood. We're going to get into the horrifying biology of those monsters later, but consider this a preliminary warning.
Peak sunshine, peak sandflies, and crucially, peak crowds. January and February push the highest visitor volumes of the year.
As we mentioned, those 2026 months broke all records.
Yeah. If you were planning a trip then, spontaneity is completely dead. You need a minimum 6-month lead time for booking absolutely everything. Hotels, rental cars, cruises.
And if you want the Milford Track, 6 months isn't even close to enough, which we'll cover in a bit. So that's the peak. What about shoulder season?
The shoulder months are October and April, and this is where the savvy traveler finds the best trade-offs. The track is open, the waterfalls are usually running high from snowmelt or autumn rains.
And the crowds drop, right?
Yeah, they drop by about 30% to 40% compared to January. And accommodation prices in the gateway town of Teanau usually drop by roughly 20% to 25%.
A 25% discount just for shifting your dates a few weeks is huge. But there is a serious catch with October, isn't there?
There is. October is the meteorological wild card. The Great Walk season might open, but conditions at higher altitudes can still be severe. You could hit deep snow and black ice, which forces DOC to close the track entirely.
Okay, so October is a gamble. But what about April?
April is the ultimate sweet spot. The summer crowds are gone, the autumn rain guarantees the waterfalls are putting on a show, and you get that price drop without the immediate threat of alpine blizzards.
April is the golden ticket. But what happens if you just reject the crowds entirely and go midwinter, like May through September?
This is when Fiordland shows its true, uncompromising character. The Great Walk season is officially closed. You cannot hike the Milford Track because the avalanche risk is too high.
And the access road is a huge issue then too, right?
Yeah, the day cruises still operate, but your biggest risk is that the only road in is far more likely to close entirely due to heavy snow.
But if you're willing to take that access risk, the rewards are unique. Hotel rates hit rock bottom in June, and the winter light is supposed to be spectacular.
It is. Because you're so far south, the sun stays low on the horizon. You get this golden gray light, mist rolling off the snow-capped mountains. Yeah. And you will have massive stretches of wilderness entirely to yourself.
The trade-off is just the anxiety of whether you can actually get there. Waking up, looking out the window, wondering if the Homer tunnel is closed.
Exactly. So the bottom line on weather, April is your best mathematical bet. But knowing when to go is useless if you don't understand the physical gauntlet of how to get there.
Yes, the gauntlet. Because you don't just teleport from your living room to a pristine fjord. It is a multi-stage journey.
Let's trace it for an international listener. Say you're flying from Sydney, London, or Toronto. Most people land in Auckland or Christchurch, then connect on a domestic flight down to Queenstown.
Now, Queenstown is famous in its own right. Adventure capital, bungee jumping, a wild party scene. But for Fiordland, it's purely a transit hub.
Right, it's just the flight gateway. And looking at flight economics for 2026, a round trip from Sydney to Queenstown starts around $219 USD. But from London, it starts at a daunting $12,269 USD.
So you've paid your massive airfare, survived jet lag, landed in Queenstown. You feel like you're ready for the wilderness. But you aren't actually there yet.
Not even close. From Queenstown, you have to get a vehicle and embark on a 2-hour drive south on State Highway 6. And this initial drive is surprisingly anticlimactic.
It really is. You expect immediate drama, but you're driving through the Southland Plains. It's incredibly flat, vast agricultural land. Lots of sheep, straight roads.
It gives you absolutely no hint of the violent vertical geography waiting for you. It's just farmland until you finally hit the town of Teanau. And we need to talk about Teanau.
The gateway town, sitting right on Lake Teanau, population under 3,000.
Right. And if you arrive expecting a quaint Aspen-style tourist village,
Yeah.
Boutique outdoor shops, cobblestone streets, vibrant après-hike nightlife, you're going to be severely disappointed.
Yeah, Teanau is a hard-nosed logistics staging ground. It's base camp.
Exactly. It has a couple petrol stations, one major supermarket, the DOC Visitor Center, and a handful of functional restaurants. Zero nightlife.
Which is by design. People aren't there to party. Its sole purpose is to prepare people for the gauntlet that lies ahead. The Milford Road.
State Highway 94, 119 kilometers from Teanau to the edge of Milford Sound. It's the only road in and the exact same road out.
And it is a formidable piece of engineering. Walk us through this drive.
You leave Teanau, enter ancient beech forests, and the road starts to wind. You pass the Mirror Lakes, but then the terrain aggressively shifts. The valley walls close in, and you enter avalanche zones where stopping is prohibited.
You climb higher and higher, and then you hit the ultimate bottleneck, the Homer Tunnel.
Sitting at 945 meters elevation.
Whenever I read about this tunnel, it sounds like something out of a fantasy novel, like The Mines of Moria. It's a single-lane tunnel carved straight through solid rock, and it's completely unlit.
Raw, blasted rock. It took decades to punch through during the Great Depression. In peak summer, that narrow tube is shared by massive coaches, wandering camper vans, and tiny rental cars.
And because it's only one lane wide, traffic is controlled by lights at either end, right?
Yeah. You can sit there for a very long time, staring at a countdown timer, waiting for your turn to plunge into the dark. And if you take a coach tour instead of driving, that seat costs 60 to 95 USD each way.
But the payoff, when you emerge from the other side of that dark tunnel.
The psychological impact cannot be overstated. You drop instantly into the Coleto Valley. The transition is violent. You go from a dark tube to being surrounded by 1,200-meter cliffs rising straight up.
With vertical rainforests clinging to sheer rock and waterfalls plummeting right next to your windshield.
It's a scale the human brain genuinely struggles to process. Even in the pouring rain, it is an extraordinary sensory experience.
But, and this is a massive but, that sense of awe can evaporate very quickly if you fall into one of the planning pitfalls that ruin trips for thousands of first-timers.
Which brings us to the three major logistics traps. These are structural traps that catch people who assume Fiordland operates like a normal tourist destination. It emphatically does not.
Let's get into trap number 1, the Milford Track booking blackout. We touched on this, but let's explain the mechanics. You decide you want to hike it, you think, I'll book it 3 months in advance.
If you do that, you will absolutely not be hiking the Milford Track. DOC releases all the independent hut bookings for the entire 6-month season on a single designated day in late May.
So if I want to hike in January 2026, I had to be online in May 2025.
Correct. And those slots do not sell out in weeks or days. Tens of thousands of bed nights sell out globally in hours, sometimes minutes.
Hours? For a 6-month window? How does that even work?
You have 50,000 outdoor enthusiasts globally hitting refresh at the exact same millisecond when the clock strikes 9:00 New Zealand time. The servers often groan under the weight.
And we need to look at the financial consequences of missing that window, because if you secure tickets, your independent hike is roughly $650 to $850 USD per person, covering huts and mandatory boat transfers.
But if you miss it, if you sleep through your alarm,
You're done.
you are locked out of the independent system. Your only remaining option is a commercial guided operator, which turns your $850 adventure into a $3,200 to $4,500 mandatory package.
That is a staggering penalty for missing an online booking window by 10 minutes. It's effectively a $2,500 mistake.
It is. The 2026-2027 season is already fully booked for popular dates.
So the fix is treating this like buying front row tickets to a global stadium tour. Set a reminder, figure out the time zone, have your credit card ready.
And you have to book all 3 huts in a single transaction, right?
Yes. If you secure Hut 1, but Hut 2 sells out while you're clicking, your entire walk is broken. You cannot legally skip a hut. It requires military precision.
Which brings us to trap number 2, the Homer Tunnel weather window. Let's say you aren't hiking. You just booked a scenic morning cruise, maybe 10:00 a.m. Google Maps says it's a 2-hour drive from Tailai. You figure, I'll leave at 7:30 a.m.
And that is exactly how you lose your money and ruin your day. This trap revolves around that Homer Tunnel bottleneck. It creates massive, unpredictable one-lane traffic jams. So you drive up expecting a clear run, and you hit a line of idling coaches that stretches for a mile. Your 2-hour drive becomes 3 or 4 hours.
And you arrive at the ferry terminal only to see your specific cruise ship physically sailing away without you.
Oh, man. And the cruise operators don't refund for traffic delays, do they?
Absolutely not.
Okay.
Companies like Real NZ have very strict policies. No refunds for weather or traffic delays on the road as long as the road is technically open.
Wow. So that $45 you spent or the $120 for a premium nature cruise, that money is just gone.
Yeah.
Because you didn't anticipate tunnel traffic.
Exactly. You're left standing at a rainy terminal. The unbreakable rule from our sources: for a morning cruise, you must leave Taiano no later than 6 a.m.
6 a.m. on a vacation. I mean, surely if you arrive 2 hours early, you just sit there.
You do. But sitting at the edge of the fjord with a coffee at 8 a.m. is vastly superior to sweating profusely in a traffic jam at 8:45 a.m.
Fair point. Okay, trap number 3. This one fascinates me. The Doubtful Sound miscalculation.
Doubtful Sound is marketed as the quieter, more remote alternative to Milford. It's 3 times longer, 10 times larger, and lacks a direct road.
So it feels vastly more isolated, but getting there is a complex logistical chain. Walk us through it.
First, you drive to Manapori. You park. You board a boat to cross Lake Manapori. You get off at a remote hydro station. Then you board a heavy-duty coach which drives you over the unpaved Wilmot Pass.
Okay, so a boat, then a bus over a mountain.
Right, and then finally you board a second boat, which is the actual cruise vessel.
Yeah.
Every leg is vulnerable to weather delays. The entire round trip takes 8 to 10 exhausting hours.
8 to 10 hours. And according to our sources, people actually try to book Doubtful Sound as a quick afternoon add-on after doing a morning cruise at Milford Sound.
They absolutely do. It's a terrifyingly common mistake.
That sounds like absolute insanity. That's like trying to run a full marathon immediately after eating a heavy Thanksgiving dinner. You're combining a 4-hour drive, a 2-hour cruise at Milford, racing to Manapori, and starting a 10-hour marathon all in one day.
It perfectly illustrates how modern bucket list travel culture fundamentally breaks down against rigid geography. People think, if we wake up early, we can do Milford in the morning and Doubtful in the afternoon.
But you can't treat it like a theme park with adjacent roller coasters. The land simply won't allow it.
The geography will aggressively punish you. You will run out of time or energy, or a weather window will close, and you'll miss a connection. The fix is respect. Doubtful Sound is a full-day commitment at absolute minimum.
Dedicate a separate day to it, or, if your budget allows, bypass the day trip chaos and book the overnight cruise, right?
Yes, it costs between $340 and $550 USD per person. It's expensive, but it justifies every penny because it solves the crowding problem entirely. You wake up on the Sound at sunrise, completely alone, hours before any day trippers arrive.
Incredible. Now, to survive all these 6 a.m. tunnel departures and 10-hour logistical chains, you need serious calories. Let's get into the realities of sustenance, survival, and the local economy.
Taiano is your final logistical outpost. The absolute anchor is the Countdown Tang Ana supermarket, recently rebranded as Woolworths. Once you drive up the Milford Road, civilization ends. There are no convenience stores for 119 kilometers.
So let's break down the exact economics of eating here in 2026, because food costs are a huge part of the Is It Worth It matrix. Our sources provide exact USD prices.
Keep in mind the exchange rate. 1 New Zealand dollar buys about 60 cents USD. And New Zealand is an island economy, so things are trucked massive distances. A loaf of standard sliced white bread is going to cost you $3.50 USD. A liter of milk is $2.20.
Okay, $3.50 for bread. Not terrible if you live in a major U.S. city.
500 grams of dry pasta is $2.80. A tin of baked beans is $1.80. But let's look at dairy. A block of local cheddar cheese is $7.50 USD.
That's getting pricier. I figured with all the sheep and cows, dairy would be cheap. What about beer?
Alcohol is heavily taxed. $12 USD for a standard 6-pack. A pre-made sandwich from the deli is $5.50.
And what if you are tackling the Great Walks? You need those ultra-lightweight, freeze-dried tramping meals.
Those will hit your budget incredibly hard. They range from $11 to $15 USD per single meal pouch. If you eat 2 a day on a 4-day hike, you're adding over $100 to your budget just in dried powder.
Wow. Self-catering is clearly how you survive financially. But what if you just want someone else to cook for you? What's the dining out scene like?
In Tianao, it's highly functional. Places like the Sandfly Cafe and the Ranch Bar and Grill will charge between 18 and 28 USD for a hearty main course burger, fish and chips, steak. At higher-end lodges, it jumps to $35 to $55 USD.
And out at Milford Sound itself, after surviving the Homer Tunnel if you're starving at the terminal.
Some cruises include a basic buffet, but if you want to buy food independently, there is exactly one cafe at the terminal building. It's the only option for 119 kilometers. They charge $18 USD for a basic wrap and $5 USD for a flat white coffee and a paper cup.
The bottleneck economy strikes again. You literally cannot buy food anywhere else. Now, you mentioned the Sandfly Cafe, which segues perfectly into the most vitriol warning in this deep dive, the Fiordland sandfly.
Yes, we cannot skip the sandflies.
Every travel destination has some local bug people complain about. Are the sandfly warnings here just overblown tourist lore?
I cannot stress this enough. They are aggressively, violently real. If you step out of your vehicle near the water, they will locate any exposed skin within minutes. They don't sting. They actually saw into the skin to draw blood.
Oh, that sounds horrific. Why are there so many?
It's biological reality. The species, Ostrosimulium ungulatum, breeds in fast-flowing water. With 8 meters of rain, Fiordland is the world's most perfect breeding ground. They are the base of the food chain, defending their territory.
So what's the defense?
DEET. Heavy-duty chemical DEET is absolutely mandatory. Natural citronella sprays will not work. You will be eaten alive.
Yeah.
The chemicals are the only thing that confuse them.
Good to know.
And the golden protocol, apply the DEET inside your rental car before you even open the door. If you open the door to spray it, 10 will fly in.
Thoroughly warned. Okay, so you've got your $15 freeze-dried meals. You're covered in DEET. Where are you actually sleeping? Let's get into the accommodations and the daily budget matrix.
The sources break this down into 4 very distinct tiers. Let's start at Tier 1, the budget and backpacker tier.
Let's hear it.
The anchor property here is Possum Lodge in Teanau. Very functional shared bathrooms. A single dorm bed costs between $28 and $38 USD per night.
Which is roughly 47 New Zealand dollars. For someone used to Southeast Asia backpacker prices, almost 50 local dollars just for a top bunk is a massive jolt.
It establishes a very high floor. Assuming you ruthlessly self-cater, take the basic $45 cruise, and use the $75 and $95 return coach, your absolute minimum daily budget will sit between $85 and $110 USD.
Okay, so $100 a day just to scrape by. What is Tier 2? The mid-range.
Defined by places like the Kingsgate Hotel. Solid 3-star properties. A standard double room runs $130 to $190 USD a night.
And the daily budget.
For a couple splitting costs, budgeting $80 each for the room, eating 1 restaurant dinner, taking a premium $90 cruise, and renting a car for $35 a day each, you're looking at $200 to $280 USD per person per day.
That feels like a solid vacation budget. And renting the car unlocks your own schedule. Now, Tier 3, the upscale option.
This is the Milford Sound Lodge. A fundamental upgrade because it is the only public accommodation actually located inside Milford Sound itself.
Oh, so you don't have to drive the 119 kilometers in the pitch black morning.
Exactly. You eliminate the Homer Tunnel morning trap. Prices here range from $180 to $320 USD a night. But you must book this 4 to 6 months out. It sells out incredibly fast.
And finally, Tier 4, the luxury end. I know this gets wild.
This is defined by properties at the Fiordland Lodge outside Tianau. Extremely exclusive, max 29 guests. Rates start at $750 to $900 USD per night for a room and push past $1,100 for private cabins.
That is serious money.
And if you add chef-prepared meals, a $380 helicopter flight, the $450 Doubtful Sound cruise, your daily spend is easily $380 to $550 plus USD per person per day on top of the room rate.
Incredible. Now, the sources mention a very specific modern category, the digital nomad. The budget estimate is $2,100 to $2,700 USD a month. But wait, power cuts are common, no co-working spaces, sketchy internet. How can you be a digital nomad there?
The sources refer to it perfectly as broken digital nomad territory. It's a philosophical choice. You accept the friction because the absolute wildest nature is on your doorstep. It's for a writer or coder who doesn't need constant video syncs. If you need reliable Zoom calls, Tanana will drive you crazy in 4 days.
Broken digital nomad territory. I love that.
So we've mapped the finances. What is the actual emotional return on this massive investment? The extremes. Transcendent moments versus honest disappointments.
Let's look at the absolute best moments. Number 1, 6:20 a.m. at Milford Sound Lodge. If you pay for the lodge and walk to the water at 6:30 a.m., you get the perfect version. Low mist, near perfect silence, no diesel bus engines running yet.
The Rudyard Kipling version. Yes. The second transcendent moment is on the Milford Track. Day 3, climbing to McKinnon Pass. Standing in a high glacial saddle at 11,154 meters, looking down into two massive river systems. Complete isolation.
And the third.
Waking up at 4 a.m. on the Doubtful Sound overnight cruise. Absolute terrifying stillness. The most consistent answer in our data for the single best experience in all of Fiordland.
Okay, those sound incredible. But what are the honest disappointments? Where does the hype fail?
The universally cited disappointment is the mid-season, midday Milford Sound cruise. It functions like an industrial logistics assembly line.
An assembly line, that's harsh.
But accurate. You board alongside 150 people. 3 identical boats launch at the exact same time, playing identical pre-recorded scripts. You fight for rail space for photos while being swarmed by sandflies. The psychological gap between expectation and reality is massive. The true luxury in Fiordland isn't thread count, it's isolation.
You pay to get away from the crowd. The other disappointments are the Milford Road drive being monotonous for 2 hours and TNL lacking charm. So managing expectations is key. Now, isolation brings us to safety. Is it safe? Should you bring kids?
From a human threat perspective, it's incredibly safe. 0 street crime. But the environmental risks are severe. Statistically, the primary risk isn't falling off a cliff. It is the Milford Road itself.
Break down the risk there.
You have a dangerous mix of massive coaches, wide camper vans, and tiny rental cars, driven by severely jet-lagged international tourists who aren't used to driving on the left side of the road.
And there are no guardrails in places, right?
Right. Winter avalanches would rip them out anyway. You get dangerous overtaking, driver frustration. The rule is, defensive driving is paramount, and absolutely no driving the road after 8:00 p.m.
It's like a video game level where the difficulty suddenly spikes. You can't just put it on cruise control.
Exactly. For hikers, the terrain is remote. Valleys flood incredibly fast. You are fundamentally responsible for your own survival.
What about solo travelers?
Solo female travelers are incredibly safe from a human perspective. But you must carry a PLB, a personal locator beacon. You can rent them for $50 to $25 a day. If you break your leg, you hit the button and a rescue helicopter comes.
Best $20 you could ever spend. And for families.
Take young kids on the standard day cruise. It's easy and visually mind-blowing. But do not take kids under 10 or 12 on the Milford Track. The drive-in is also a challenge. No cell service, 1 toilet stop, and the unlit Homer tunnel genuinely frightens some kids.
Okay, so if all this sounds too intense or expensive, what are the alternatives? Is there a way to hack this?
The sources provide 2 distinct alternatives. Alternative 1 is making Doubtful Sound your primary experience. Skip Milford entirely, take that $340 to $450 budget, and book the Doubtful overnight cruise. It's a pure version of the wilderness.
And alternative 2.
Skip New Zealand entirely and go to the Norwegian fjords, places like Flom. For UK or European listeners, a flight to Bergen, Norway, is as low as $120 USD round trip. You save thousands on airfare and travel time compared to flying to Queenstown.
But you lose the specific Milford Track infrastructure and the New Zealand wildlife.
Yes, you have to weigh the flight cost against seeing fjords 2 hours from your house. Which brings us to the final, is it worth it, matrix.
Let's run it. Profile 1, the backpacker.
Conditionally, yes. Stick to the $85 to $110 daily budget, do the basic cruise and free DOC walks, skip the track, and self-cater. Worth it.
Profile 2, the mid-range traveler spending $200 to $280 a day.
Strongly yes. The absolute sweet spot. Rent a car, take a premium cruise, maybe stretch for 1 night at Milford Sound Lodge. Worth it.
Profile 3, the family.
Yes, with meticulous prep. Focus on day cruises, skip grueling hikes. Worth it for older kids. Proceed with caution for kids under 8.
Profile 4, the luxury traveler.
Absolutely yes. Arguably the most remote, accessible luxury wilderness in the Southern Hemisphere. Strongly worth it.
And the digital nomad.
Limited. If you need high-speed bandwidth, no. If you need complete isolation to write a novel, yes.
So across the board, despite the crowds, the sandflies, the costs, the geography still justifies the journey for almost everyone.
It does. But this record-breaking influx raises an existential question. We look at the traffic jams, the surges. How long until DOC is forced to implement a strict lottery system or a hard cap just to enter the park boundaries?
To put a bouncer at that single door we talked about?
Exactly. Will the true, uncrowded wilderness soon only be accessible to those lucky enough to win a lottery or wealthy enough to pay a premium?
That is a genuinely provocative thought to leave on. Are we living in the final years of open access to the eighth wonder of the world? It makes you wonder whether you're willing to brave the Homer Tunnel to get that perfect 6 a.m. misty morning before it's locked behind a quota system forever.
It's a question every traveler has to answer before they book that flight.
If this gave you the honest verdict you needed, follow the show. New episodes drop every day.
That is the honest verdicts from Phil and H.